Iris Tremaine is my name, and I recently turned 18. I grinned when my dad drew me away at my birthday party last night and said, "When this is over, you're going to sign some papers for Uncle Wade, just a formality." I gave a nod. Then, as a precaution, I went into the kitchen, opened my laptop, and discreetly moved my grandparents' multi-million-dollar legacy into an irreversible trust. My parents and younger sister discovered the next morning that everything, including the cabin, savings, and investments, was secured behind an impenetrable legal wall. My father became white. My uncle hired a lawyer after signing a contract to sell land he never owned. Please press like and subscribe before I tell you what occurred next. Enter your local time and city below. It's great to know where you're listening. Let me now transport you back 6 years to a summer at Cedar Lake, where my grandfather stated something that I didn't really get until last night. My grandpa, Harold Tremaine, picked me up in his vehicle the summer I turned 12 and took me 40 minutes to Cedar Lake. Surrounded by towering white trees that shield the afternoon light, the cottage is situated away from the lake. One side of the porch sags. The screen door is not latching properly. It smells like ancient books, wood smoke, and something sweet that I can't quite put my finger on. Grandpa adds, "Grab the other end," as he raises a fence rail. Yes, I do. 3 rotten posts along the south side are replaced during the morning. He doesn't hurry me. He demonstrates how to press my thumb into the grain to look for soft places. Inside, Grandma Vivian has 2 sandwiches, the one Grandpa made himself the year they were married, and iced tea waiting on the kitchen table. If it gives, it's done. When I come out onto the porch, she is reading and patting the chair next to her. Until the light turns gold, we sit and gaze at the lake. Grandpa informs me, this cabin stays in the family, as he cleans his hands of sawdust that night. I'm not really sure what he means when he says, "But family isn't always blood, Iris. Family is whoever shows up." I'm 12. He's being lyrical, in my opinion. He isn't. Every weekend during the summer, I return to Cedar Lake. In October, I find out which windows stick, where the water heater leaks, and how to bleed the radiator. Because it helps the space seem cozier, Grandma tells me to arrange the bookshelves according to color. Grandpa shows me the ancient iron spikes he pounded into the property border markings. I was unaware at the time that my grandfather was already discussing this location and me with a lawyer. The air is different back home. Everything is good in our Ridgemont home. There are 3 bedrooms, a yard that needs to be mowed, and a garage that serves as my dad's construction supplies company office. All right, just great, not warm. Kelsey, my 10-year-old sister, has the larger bedroom. Last spring, I redecorated with lavender walls and a desk light that cost more than my whole bookcase. The carpet from the previous owners is still in my room. My dad brings up the cottage over supper. Greg remarks, "Dad's place is just sitting there losing value," while slicing his steak. "Property taxes alone are killing us. We should sell it, reinvest," my mom says. Makes sense. Grandpa said the cabin stays in the family, I reply. Greg chuckles. Not a cruel chuckle, but perhaps worse, a contemptuous one. Nobody asks me anything more than, "You were 12, Iris." He was being nice. The topic of discussion shifts to Kelsey's argument trophy. Denise has already framed the certificate, and she is a regional finalist. 2 weeks ago, I won the district science fair. I still have the ribbon in my backpack. I clean the plates after supper. A glossy flyer is partially concealed behind a grocery list on the counter. Development of Ridgeline. Lakefront property at high prices are now being acquired. In the margin is a scrawled phone number. It's not my dad's handwriting, but I'm not sure whose it is. I returned the flyer to its original location. I sat on my bed upstairs and considered Grandpa's kitchen table. The one he constructed by hand. The one where Grandma places my lunch without asking what I want because she already knows. The flyer below is on my mind. My grandparents' house is already being measured in dollar signs by someone. 2 years later, Grandpa Harold passes away. I'm 14. Tuesday is the day of the funeral. The grass is wet, the sky is gray, and the folding chairs sink into the grass. I take his handkerchief and sit in the second row. Frayed at the edges, blue plaid with a subtle pine scent. Greg and his brother Wade are standing at the dessert table at the wedding, not eating, speaking poorly. Wade's arm is tucked with a folder. Greg continues to nod. Wade says one sentence to me. "Before probate becomes complex, let's get this resolved." At the funeral, they are discussing the cabin. I remain silent. I'm 14. I am powerless, voiceless, and unaware that my grandfather has previously explained this same moment. 2 years go by. I'm 16. Grandma Vivian becomes ill in March and passes away in June. The last time I see her, she clutches my hand. Her hold was quite tight. She murmurs, "The cabin is yours, Iris." She gives one hug and shuts her eyes. "Don't let them take it. Promise me." I promise, Grandma. After the funeral, on a dreary day with the same folding chairs, Greg sits at our kitchen table and tells Denise, "Now we can finally sort out the property." He says this with a sense of relief, as if a weight has been removed. Wade calls that same evening. In the garage, I hear Greg pacing while on the phone. His voice is lighter than it has been in weeks. "Yeah, no, I agree. Let's get it moving." As I stand in the hallway with a glass of water in my hand, I am aware of something that feels like a stone in my chest. For them, my grandmother's passing is a clearing rather than a loss. That night, I don't weep. My decision-making process is distinct. I simply don't know how to respond to it yet. The hut becomes my silent rebellion between the ages of 16 and nearly 18. I drove my used Honda, which I purchased with money from babysitting, to Cedar Lake every Saturday morning. I fixed the porch screen. I changed the rear door's weather stripping. Grandpa taught me that this is how leaks begin, so I sweep pine needles off the roof. The talks change at home. The cabin becomes the family's property instead of Grandpa's. At supper, Greg repeats this as if it has always been true. Wade now appears every other Sunday, sometimes with manila folders and other times with a laptop that is open to real estate listings. I give it a go. Before correcting Kelsey's schoolwork, Denise gently lays down her fork and says, "What about Grandma's wish? She wanted me to keep it." "Your grandma was emotional at the end, sweetie. This is business." This is business. They refer to anything that was once love with that term. Greg becomes more straightforward by the age of 17. I can see that he means family when he adds, "When you turn 18, we'll figure this out as a family." I'm organizing the hall closet by myself at the cottage one November afternoon. I discover a sealed letter with Grandma Vivian's handwriting behind a pile of antique quilts. On the front is my name. One business card was inside. Margaret Caldwell is a lawyer. Tremaine Family Trust is displayed in tiny letters beneath her name. It's recognition, not fear, that makes my palms tremble. This is what Grandma left for me to uncover. She was aware that I, not Greg or Wade, would be the one organizing closets. I put the card in my wallet. I haven't called yet. Margaret Caldwell gives me the first call 3 months before to my 18th birthday. On a Thursday night in February, the call is placed. My phone displays an unknown number with a local area code while I'm working on my math homework in my room. "Iris? Margaret Caldwell is this person. I was the lawyer for your grandparents." She sounds as though she has practiced this introduction. Her voice is calm, professional, and cautious. "Before your birthday, I must talk to you. There's not much time, and there are things you need to know." She instructs me to see her at her downtown office the following Saturday. By myself. I leave. Margaret Caldwell is a silver-haired woman in her late 50s who wears reading glasses around her neck. Her little, well-organized workplace has a coffee and old paper odor. She opens a folder while seated across from me. "I was hired by your grandparents 6 years ago," she continues. "They created an unchangeable trust. The combined worth of the cabin, savings account, and investment portfolio is almost $2.1 million. Everything is kept in the trust. The only beneficiary is you." I sense a tiny tilt in the room. I have everything left by my grandparents? While they were still living, they moved it into the trust. It never became a part of their estate legally. Probate cannot be used for it. Your uncle and father are not entitled. My name appears on the second line of a summary of the trust that she slips over the desk. 6 years ago, the county recorder's office registered the cabin's title under the trust. Your dad is unaware of that. How come they didn't see him? Margaret hesitates. There is silence in the room when your grandpa says, "My sons will sell that cabin before the funeral flowers wilt." I look at the piece of paper that has my name on it. "There's something else," Margaret remarks. After that encounter, I begin to pay attention. Someone has been making inquiries at the county recorder's office about the cabin's title within the last month. Quietly, not suspiciously. Wade comes over for supper the following Sunday. He then vanishes into the garage with Greg. The door is slightly open, enough to hear, but not enough to see. The voice of Wade. I already signed the purchase agreement with Ridgeline for $450, but we need the title clean before closing. Greg asked, how do we get it clean? Quick claim deed. Dad's gone, Mom's gone. We're the legal heirs. We quit claim the property to ourselves, record it, and sell. Is that legal? It's a standard real estate transfer between heirs. Nobody's going to question it. Pause. What about Iris? Greg asks in a softer voice, and my chest constricts. Wade responds quickly, as if he had already given it some thought. She's 17, Greg. She can't do anything. And by the time she's 18, the sale goes through. Done deal. She'll be upset. She'll get over it. We'll give her a cut. 50 grand for college. She should be grateful. I return to the garage door. It's chilly on my hands. Wade previously signed a $45,000 purchase deal with a development business for a cottage on land kept in a trust that he is unaware of. That evening, I send Margaret 2 words while sitting on my bed. They're accelerating. 3 minutes later, she responds. I put my phone away and look up at the ceiling. I expected that. Come see me Saturday. We'll prepare everything you need. Kelsey is giggling at something while watching a TV in the adjacent room. My parents are downstairs emptying the dishes and chatting about their weekend plans as if nothing had happened. Additionally, a contract that is already worthless is located in Wade's folder in the garage. He simply isn't aware of it yet. Saturday. Margaret's workspace. Drawing lines between dates like a battle plan, she draws out the timetable on a legal pad. The trust already has the title to the cabin. Wade's rapid claim deed will not match the chain of title, thus the county recorder should reject it. It has been 6 years since your grandparents' personal name was on the property. However, he might establish what's known as a cloud on title if he presents further paperwork, such as an affidavit of heirship or perhaps a forged death certificate. Although it won't grant him possession, it may keep the property embroiled in legal proceedings for at least a year. I must thus take action first. You must take prompt action. She gives the calendar a touch. You become a legal adult on the day you turn 18. The position of successor beneficiary may be formally accepted by you. I submit a public notice of legal interest, or lis pendens, at the county recorder's office as soon as you sign it. The title becomes frozen as a result. Nothing can be recorded against it. I give a nod. What should I do? I'll take care of the rest. Just show up and sign one document. I take a time to sit with that. Do I have to inform my parents? Margaret removes her spectacles. Iris, your grandfather begged me to keep you safe and not to bargain with them. I take a car home. Greg is happy in the kitchen. Good news, little one. I'm planning a birthday celebration for you. Entire family. Saturday evening. It's rather large. 18. He grinned. Denise grinned. Kelsey claps as well. I also grin. My birthday celebration is being organized by my father. My grandmother's cabin will be sold by my uncle. And I'm grinning as I sit at the kitchen table because in 9 days, I'll let them believe that everything is proceeding as planned. I will tell you the truth. One of the most difficult things I've ever done was to sit in my room that night knowing what was about to happen. There was a part of me that wanted to just go downstairs and say it. I know, Dad. Margaret was correct, though. They would find a way around it if I told them. So I didn't say anything. I waited. I have a question for you. Have you ever had to keep quiet even though every part of you wanted to say something in order to protect yourself? Let me know in the comments. I perused them. This narrative is about to take a turn, so if you haven't already, click the subscribe button. My mother sits down next to me on the couch 5 days before my birthday. She's speaking in an adult-like tone, gentle, practiced, and a little rehearsed. Denise explains, now that you're almost 18, there are some family decisions we should make together. Like a garment, the word lands. The cabin costs money to maintain, she goes on. Taxes, insurance, repairs. Your dad's business has been struggling, and if we sell, we could pay off the debt and set up a college fund for you and Kelsey. Both of you. Grandma asked me to keep it. Denise's face changes. A brief moment of frustration that was soon forgotten. Greg enters just in time to say, "Your grandma was very sentimental at the end, Iris, but sentiment doesn't pay property taxes." I wonder whether this was intended. "I've already talked to a buyer," he declares. "Good price, fair deal." "Who is the purchaser?" He says nothing. "A development company. Wade knows them." "Which business?" An extended pause. Something ridgeline. "They are trustworthy." I don't go any farther. I say, "I'll think about it." Greg gives me a shoulder pat. "That's my girl." With a contented demeanor, as if he had just concluded a transaction, he leaves. Kelsey knocks on my door later that evening. Her hair is still wet from the shower, and she is wearing pajamas. "Iris?" "Yeah?" she asks as she picks at a thread on the comforter while perched on the edge of my bed. She gives me a sidelong glance and says, "Mom and Dad keep talking about the cabin at night after I'm supposed to be asleep. They sound different, like they're planning something." "Different how?" "Like they're excited, but also nervous." She stops. I slip the blanket over her feet and ask, "Is something going on?" She nods, but doesn't seem persuaded. "Don't worry about it, Kels. They are aware of it. I said I'd think about it, that's not a yes. They will continue to press because of this." Uncle Wade unexpectedly arrives just 3 days before my birthday. I'm returning from the grocery store when he catches me in the driveway, wearing casual attire, grinning broadly, and resting against his car as if he were in the area by chance. Wade works as a real estate broker. He doesn't do anything by mistake. We sit on the front steps and say, "Hey, kiddo, got a minute? Just want to talk, uncle to niece." With his elbows resting on his knees, he leans forward. "Here's the thing, Iris. That lake lot, just the land alone, is worth $450. I can get us a deal with a buyer I trust. Fast close, clean paperwork." "And what do I get?" $5,000 to $1,000 cash for college. I let the sum float about. 50 out of 450? Wade asks, grinning as if I've said something endearing. "You're 18, Iris. 50 grand is a lot of money for someone your age. Most kids would jump at that." "Whose name is on the deed, Uncle Wade?" The smile freezes just for a second. A flicker behind the eyes, a micro adjustment. Then it's back. "Your grandparents. But they're gone now. Passes to your dad and me as next of kin. That's not how it works. I know it. He should know it. He sells houses for a living. But he's counting on me not knowing." "I'll think about it," I say again. Wade stands, brushes off his jeans. "Don't overthink this one, Iris. Opportunities like this don't wait." He drives away. Before he's even at the end of the street, he's on the phone. I can see his mouth moving through the driver's window. That night, I text Margaret again. "They're accelerating." She replies, "Stay the course." 3 more days. 3 more days. I can do 3 more days. The night before my birthday, I drive to the cabin alone. The road is quiet. Cedar Lake sits flat and dark under a half moon, and the pines along the bank look like cutouts against the sky. I park in the gravel patch Grandpa leveled himself, walk up the porch steps, second one still creaks, and sit in the chair next to the one that used to be his. The air smells like rain and pine resin. I check my email. Margaret has sent the full document package, the acceptance of successor beneficiary form, the beneficiary designation confirmation, a 1-page summary of the trust terms. Everything formatted, flagged with sticky tabs, ready for a signature. My signature. At midnight. I read each document twice. Then I close my laptop and listen to the lake. Grandpa used to sit right here and say, "Patience isn't weakness, Iris. It's timing." I always thought he was talking about fishing. The tears come without warning. Not a collapse, not a breakdown, just a quiet overflow that I let happen. I cry because I wish this were different. I wish my dad had been the kind of man who would have taken me fishing at this lake instead of calculating its resale value. I wish my mom had asked me what I want instead of telling me what's practical. I wish I didn't have to sign a legal document at midnight to protect myself from the people who are supposed to protect me. But wishes don't hold up in court. Trust documents do. I wipe my face, lock the cabin door, drive home, lie down in bed, set my alarm for 11:45 p.m. In 6 hours, I turn 18. In 7, my family finds out that the cabin was never theirs to take. 11:50 p.m. My bedroom door is closed. The house is silent. Greg and Denise went to bed an hour ago, and Kelsey's light went off at 10. I open my laptop and connect to the video call. Margaret appears in her home office, reading glasses on, a stack of papers lit by a desk lamp. "Ready? You are a legal adult in every way that counts when the clock strikes midnight," she says. "Are you ready?" "Now," she says. "I'll go to the county recorder's office and file a lis pendens first thing tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock a.m. I sign the acceptance of successor beneficiary form, a one-page document that certifies I'm formally receiving the trust my grandparents created. From that moment on, every decision regarding the trust assets goes through Margaret and me as co-decision makers. There is a pending legal interest in the land, according to that public notice. No one may sell, transfer, or encumber the title while it is in effect once it has been recorded. What happens if they've previously submitted an application? After that, anything they submitted would be flagged. The trust, which was registered 6 years ago, will be displayed on the chain of title rather than your father. Conflicting documents are rejected. I examine the signed document I'm holding. My grandparents' names are printed above mine, and my name is inked. Margaret's voice becomes a little softer. "Iris, this isn't a ruse. This is the final present from your granddad. All you needed to do was reach adulthood." It is 12:03 a.m. on my laptop. I'm 18. The Tremaine Family Irrevocable Trust has me as its legal beneficiary. Additionally, my uncle's quitclaim deed is already a dead document in the garage downstairs. In around 9 hours, he will discover that. Wade Tremaine is printing paperwork in the kitchen of a leased duplex across town. At the time, I was unaware of this. Later, I piece everything together based on what Margaret was told by the county clerk and what Greg finally acknowledged during one of our more difficult meetings. However, this is what transpired as I was upstairs signing my acceptance form that same evening. A quitclaim deed, a one-page document that transfers property rights from one party to another without any ownership promise, was produced by Wade. When used properly, it is legitimate. When the signer lacks transfer rights, it is illegal. At 11:30 p.m., and he gave Greg a call. Everything is prepared. At 9 o'clock, we file. I want to make sure Iris is preoccupied with birthday-related matters before the recorder's office opens at 8 o'clock. Are you certain about this, Greg? Greg, they're dead, Wade. Next of kin are us. It's easy. It wasn't easy. It was a fabrication disguised in the terminology of real estate. A $45,000 purchase agreement with Ridgeline Development LLC was also open on Wade's laptop. 30 days following the recording of the quitclaim deed is the closing date. Wade would owe Ridgeline $45,000 in penalties and damages if he failed to submit a clear title within that time frame. Before my grandparents' title had ever been thoroughly examined, and before he had confirmed that the property was even in the estate, he had signed that contract 2 months prior. He thought it was. He thought that no one had any other plans. Wade had wagered about $5,000 on a piece of paper that wasn't his. He was simply unaware of it at the time, and he was going to discover that the entire chain of title told a different tale when he entered the county recorder's office in 9 hours with his swift claim deed and his certain handshake. At 4 o'clock p.m., my birthday celebration begins. There are about 20 individuals in the living room. Neighbors, 2 of Greg's former work associates, several of my parents' church acquaintances, and the relatives of Kelsey's closest friends. Nora Beckett, who lives next door to the cabin, is also present, sitting by the window with a glass of lemonade and alert, perceptive eyes. There are balloons, a sheet cake from the Main Street Bakery, and a banner with the words, "Happy 18th," written in silver lettering. I grin. I am grateful to all of you. I unwrap little presents like a photo frame, a diary, and a gift card. The signed acceptance form from last night is neatly folded into a square in my jacket pocket. I keep my hands off of it. I'm not required to. It's finished already. Greg taps his drink and gets up close to the dessert table. The space becomes silent. He stops and surveys the crowd before saying, "Iris is officially an adult today. Denise and I are so proud of her." He gives me a smile and says, "And as a family, we have some exciting plans for the future." Right, Iris? Everyone in the room turns to face me. "Thanks, Dad." That's all I say. After a moment, Greg laughs it off and lifts his glass. The room comes next. The conversation starts up again. I catch a glimpse of Wade near the front entrance, using both thumbs to quickly type something on his phone. As I walk by the window, Nora grabs my arm. She smells like lavender hand cream when she leans up close. "Your grandmother would want you to know something," she murmurs. Greg gets back up when the cake is cut and the plates are distributed. "I saw your uncle at the cabin last week with 2 men in suits. They were walking the lot line with a measuring tape. Wade brought the buyers to the property before he even had the title. That's how confident he was." His voice is stronger and more deliberate this time. It seems like he has been waiting for an audience. He places his hand on Denise's shoulder and says, "Before we wrap up, I want to share something with everyone. Our family has been going through a tough time financially. Some of you know about the store. It's been hard." Sympathetic noises, I feel the words hit my skin like cold water. "But Harold and Vivian, my parents, they left us something, the cabin out at Cedar Lake. And as a family, we've decided to sell it to secure everyone's future. We've decided." In front of 20 people, he's making this announcement as if it were final. The room waits as he looks directly at me and says, "Iris understands. She knows this is what's best for all of us, right, sweetheart?" Everybody sees me. Nora with her lemonade, Kelsey partially concealed behind the couch, and neighbors who have known me since I was a little child. I put my fork on my plate and Denise says, grinning, "It's what responsible families do. We sacrifice for each other." The only sound in the room is the clink. Greg says, "I never agreed to sell the cabin, Dad." His jaw muscles tighten, but his grin remains set. Wade moves out of the doorway and says, "I'm not kidding." "She's kidding, birthday nerves." I grab my glass of water, take a leisurely sip, then put it down. "Come on, Iris. This isn't the time or place." "You're right, Uncle Wade. This isn't the time." I hold his gaze. The time is 8:00 a.m. tomorrow morning. Silence. Wade's phone buzzes in his pocket. He doesn't check it. No one in the room moves. The guests start leaving after that. Polite goodbyes, tight smiles, the kind of exit people make when they can feel a storm building inside someone else's house. Within 30 minutes, the living room is down to family, Nora, and 2 neighbors who seem unsure whether to go or stay. Denise waits until the front door closes behind the last near stranger, then turns on me in the kitchen. Her voice is controlled, but pitched just loud enough to carry. "Do you have any idea what your father is going through?" She steps closer. "He might lose this house, Iris. Our house. The one you sleep in every night. And you're holding on to a cabin you visit on weekends? I visit every weekend, Mom. That's not the point." She presses her palms flat on the counter. "We are a family. Families make decisions together. And if you loved this family, you wouldn't need a lawyer to tell you what to do." The room goes still. I stare at her. "How do you know about a lawyer?" Denise doesn't flinch. "Wade found the business card in your bag last week. Margaret Caldwell." "Who is she, Iris?" My stomach drops. Not from fear, but from the realization that they've been going through my things, searching for something they could use. Before I can answer, Nora Beckett's voice cuts through from the kitchen doorway, even and firm. "That girl has every right to talk to a lawyer, Denise. Vivian would have wanted that." Denise wheels around. "This is a family matter, Nora. Please." Nora doesn't move. She looks at me, then back at Denise. "Vivian was my friend for 40 years. I think I know what she wanted." The silence between them could crack glass. I don't say another word. I don't need to. Not yet. Nora leaves. The neighbors slip out behind her with quiet goodbyes. Now it's just the 5 of us. Greg, Denise, Wade, Kelsey, and me. Greg closes the kitchen door. The fluorescent light buzzes overhead. He pulls out a chair, sits down, and folds his hands on the table like a man about to deliver terms. "Here's what's going to happen, Iris." His voice is low, deliberate. "Tomorrow morning, Wade and I go to the county office. We file the paperwork. The cabin sells. You get your share, a fair share, and we move on as a family." "What's my share?" $5,000. "Out of how much?" Greg doesn't answer. Wade, leaning against the doorframe, fills the gap. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I look at my dad. "And if I say no?" Greg's jaw sets. "If you fight this, you're on your own. No more help with college. No more living under this roof." The kitchen is very quiet. The faucet drips once, You're threatening to kick me out on my 18th birthday? I'm asking you to be part of this family. I push back from the table, stand up. My voice is steady, even though my hands aren't. I'm part of this family, Dad. I'm the part that keeps promises. I walk past Wade, past Kelsey, who's sitting on the stairs with her knees pulled to her chest, and I go upstairs. I close my door. I sit on the bed and breathe. Greg thinks his deadline is 9 o'clock a.m. at the county recorder's office. He doesn't know that Margaret's deadline is 8 o'clock. I sat on my bed that night holding the acceptance form I'd already signed at midnight. My dad had just threatened to remove me from my own family if I didn't hand over a cabin that was legally mine. My mom said I didn't love them. My uncle was planning to file a forged deed first thing in the morning, and all I could think was my grandmother was right. She knew exactly who they would become when the money was on the table, and she planned for it years before it happened. If someone you loved ever prepared something to protect you even after they were gone, I want to hear about it. Tell me in the comments. Now let me tell you what happened at 8 o'clock a.m. 8 o'clock a.m. The county recorder's office opens. The fluorescent lights flicker on. A clerk in a blue cardigan unlocks the front counter. Margaret Caldwell is the first person through the door. She's wearing a gray blazer and carrying a leather folder. She approaches the counter, presents 2 documents, a certified copy of the Tremaine Family Irrevocable Trust and a lis pendens notice, and asks for them to be recorded against the Cedar Lake property. The clerk reviews the paperwork, checks the existing title records, and stamps it. Recorded. Done. From this moment forward, anyone who pulls the title on the Cedar Lake cabin will see notice of pending legal interest. Tremaine Family Irrevocable Trust. Margaret Caldwell, Trustee. Iris Tremaine, Beneficiary. At 8:14 a.m., Margaret calls me. It's done. The lis pendens is noted. The property has been highlighted. Whatever they bring in will be rejected on chain of title grounds. I'm sitting at the kitchen table eating cereal. Greg is upstairs getting dressed. Denise is making coffee. Normal morning sounds. Water running, a closet door, the clink of a belt buckle. At 8:30, Greg and Wade come downstairs together. Greg is wearing a button-down shirt, his business shirt, the one he wore to bank meetings before the store went under. Wade has a folder tucked under his arm, same folder as always. We'll be back by lunch, Greg says, grabbing his keys. I look up from my bowl. Good luck, I say. Greg pauses in the doorway, looks at me. Something in my voice, maybe. Or something in my face. Then he turns and walks out. I rinse my cereal bowl, I dry it, I set it in the cabinet, and I wait. I'll never know exactly what their faces looked like. But I know what happened, because Margaret was still at the recorder's office when they walked in. She stayed on purpose. 9:05 a.m. Wade approaches the counter. He slides the quick claim deed across with a confident nod. Greg stands behind him, hands in his pockets, looking around the room like they'll be in and out in 10 minutes. The clerk takes the document, types the parcel number into the system, reads the screen, types again, then she stops. I can't record this document, sir. Wade leans forward. Excuse me? The Tremaine Family Irrevocable Trust holds the ownership to the property. It was captured in 2020. Additionally, a lis pendens was filed this morning. That's impossible, Wade responds. My parents own that property. Sir, the deed was transferred to the trust 6 years ago. There is no doubt about the chain of title. Greg approaches Wade and says, This quitclaim doesn't match the current ownership record. There's no trust. The clerk looks between them and says, I'd recommend you speak with the trustee listed on the filing, a Margaret Caldwell. Wade's hand falls flat on the counter and his face drains. You said this was simple. I know about any trust. You're a real estate agent, Wade. How did you not check the title first? Wade opens his mouth, closes it, then opens it again. The clerk says evenly, Gentlemen, I'll need you to step outside if there's a disagreement. The call arrives at 9:22 a.m. Greg is in the parking lot, and I can hear traffic behind him. I accepted what Grandpa and Grandma left me, he says in a tight, trembling voice. That's all. You went behind our backs with some lawyer we've never heard of. Dad, Margaret Caldwell has been the trust attorney for 6 years. Iris, this is my parents' property. You just never asked. There was a pause and heavy breathing. Their son is me, and they decided to leave it to me. Not because they didn't love you, but because they didn't trust you with it. After the longest stillness of my life, I count the sprinkler rotations, 3 complete arcs, before he says, "We'll fight this. You can try." However, the trust cannot be revoked. That implies that even I am unable to dissolve it. Nothing can be undone by anyone. You don't know what you're talking about. I do, Dad. I've had 3 months to learn. He hangs up. No goodbye, just a click and dead air. I set the phone on the porch railing. My hands are shaking, not from anger, not from fear, from the weight of saying those words to my own father, from knowing that the man who taught me to ride a bike when I was 6 is the same man who just tried to sell my grandmother's home out from under me. I sit there until the shaking stops. It takes a while. Then my phone buzzes again. An unfamiliar number. A man's voice, brisk and corporate. "Ms. Tremaine? This is Carter Briggs from Ridgeline Development. We need to talk." Carter Briggs speaks the way developers do, fast, factual, and already calculating his next move before the current sentence ends. "We have a purchase agreement with Wade Tremaine for the Cedar Lake property. He guaranteed clean title. We've just been informed there's a lis pendens on the parcel. That's correct. Can you explain the situation?" "Mr. Briggs, my uncle does not own that property. He never did. The cabin and the land have been held in an irrevocable trust since 2020. I'm the sole beneficiary." A pause. The sound of papers shifting on the other end. He represented himself as the heir. "I understand, but representation doesn't create ownership. I'd recommend you discuss this with him, and possibly with your own attorney." Another pause, longer this time. "Ms. Tremaine, is there any possibility of a sale? We'd be prepared to make a competitive offer directly to the trust." "The property is not for sale. Understood." His voice hardened slightly. "Then we'll be pursuing our remedies against Mr. Tremaine. I give him Margaret's number. Within the hour, she confirms to Ridgeline's legal team what I already told Carter. The trust is valid, Wade had no authority, and the purchase agreement was executed based on a misrepresentation of ownership. Ridgeline's response is immediate. They're pursuing Wade for breach of contract, the $45,000 penalty clause, plus damages. That afternoon, Margaret calls with one more piece of information. Her voice is careful, but direct. "Iris, the quitclaim deed Wade tried to file. It included a notary stamp. I had the recorder's office pull a copy before they rejected it. The stamp doesn't match any registered notary in the county. It appears to be forged." I close my eyes. "That's a felony, isn't it? In this state?" "Yes. My uncle didn't just try to steal my cabin. He committed a crime to do it." Greg comes home at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He moves through the front door like a man carrying something invisible and very heavy. Denise is already in the kitchen, arms crossed, face blotched from what I'm guessing was an hour of angry crying. I'm at the dining table. I don't get up. Greg sits down across from me. He stares at the table for a long time. "I'm going to lose this house, Iris." His voice is flat, emptied out. "The bank is on me for 18,000. The store is gone. That cabin was supposed to be our way out. I know you're struggling, Dad. I'm sorry about the business. Then help us. The cabin was never your way out. It was Grandpa and Grandma's gift to me." "A gift?" He almost laughs. "For what?" "You're 18. What does an 18-year-old need with a lakefront cabin? It's not about what I need. It's about what they wanted." Denise steps in from the kitchen doorway. "They were old, Iris. They weren't thinking clearly at the end. They were thinking clearly enough to hire a lawyer 6 years before they died." Greg slams his palm on the table. "I'll contest the trust." A voice comes through my phone. I'd called Margaret before Greg walked in and left the line open on speaker. Not to trap him, to save time. "Mr. Tremaine," Margaret's voice is steady, professional. "Contesting an irrevocable trust that was established 6 years before the grantor's deaths, with full legal capacity documented and witnessed, will cost you more in legal fees than the property is worth. I'd strongly advise against it." The kitchen is silent. The faucet drips. Greg looks at me, really looks, and for the first time, I see something I've never seen in my father's eyes before. Not anger, recognition. 2 hours later, Wade calls the house. Greg picks up in the living room. I'm in the hallway, close enough to hear every word through the thin wall. "Ridgeline is suing me." Wade's voice is stripped raw. 45,000 in penalties plus damages. They're saying I committed fraud. Greg's reply is cold. Colder than I've ever heard him. Did you? I thought we owned it, Greg. You're a real estate agent. You do title searches for a living. How did you not check? I assumed. You assumed? And now I'm sitting here with nothing because you assumed. You wanted the money too. But I didn't forge a notary stamp, Wade. A long silence. I didn't forge. I just found a stamp and... That's forgery. You know that's forgery. Wade's breathing gets heavier. I need a lawyer. So do I. Greg pauses. Don't call this house again until you've talked to one. He hangs up. I hear him sit on the couch. The springs creak. Then nothing. I go upstairs. Kelsey's door is open. She's sitting on her bed with headphones around her neck, eyes wide. Is Uncle Wade in trouble? Yeah, Kels. He is. Is Dad? I sit on the edge of her bed. Dad made bad choices, but Uncle Wade made worse ones. She nods slowly, processing it the way 15-year-olds do. Not fully understanding, but knowing enough to be scared. I go to my room, sit by the window, and look out at the street. A dog walker passes. A sprinkler hisses. The world goes on. I don't feel victorious. I don't feel satisfied. I feel like someone who just walked through a fire and hasn't checked yet to see what got burned. Over the next 3 weeks, the consequences fall like dominoes, and each one makes a sound. Ridgeline Development files a civil suit against Wade Tremaine, breach of contract, misrepresentation of title, and demand for the $45,000 penalty, plus an additional $60,000 in damages and legal costs. Their attorney sends the complaint by certified mail to Wade's duplex. He signs for it on a Tuesday. The county district attorney's office receives a referral from the recorder's office regarding the forged notary stamp. An investigator is assigned. Wade's real estate license is suspended pending the outcome, which means his income, such as it was, stops. Word travels in a small town, not because I say anything, I don't. But court filings are public record, and Ridgeline's lawsuit names the Cedar Lake property by parcel number. The neighbors at the lake read the local paper. They talk. By the second week, the story has made its way through the Rotary Club, the church parking lot, and the checkout line at Hanson's Market. Wade calls me once. I answer. Iris, please, can you ask your lawyer to drop the lis pendens? Uncle Wade, the lis pendens protects my property. If the title is cleared, I might be able to work out a deal with Ridgeline to lower the penalty. It stays. Your grandparents would be ashamed of you. I pause to consider the statement before whispering, my grandparents are the ones who put this up. This was their choice. I was their choice. So I don't think shame is what they'd feel. He hangs up. I set my phone down and look at the wall. There's a framed photo of Grandpa Harold on my desk, the one from the summer I was 12, both of us standing by the fence we fixed. I leave it where it is. Greg doesn't contest the trust. Margaret was right. The legal fees alone would bury him, and the case would go nowhere. An irrevocable trust established by mentally competent grantors, witnessed, notarized properly, and recorded years before their deaths, is about as airtight as estate law gets. Instead, Greg does what he should have done 2 years ago. He sells the building supply store at a loss, but enough to negotiate a repayment plan with the bank. The house stays, barely. The savings don't. Denise goes back to work for the first time in a decade. She takes a position at a pharmacy on Lincoln Avenue, the same chain where she worked before Kelsey was born. She doesn't talk about it much. When neighbors ask, she says she wanted to stay busy. Nobody believes that, but nobody pushes. The town knows. Not every detail, but enough. Harold Tremaine's sons tried to sell his cabin, and the granddaughter stopped them. That's the version that circulates at the diner, at PTA meetings, at the gas station on Route 12. Some people think I was brave. Some people think I was cold. I don't correct either group. Greg and I don't speak for 2 weeks after that morning. The house is quiet in a way that feels permanent, like the silence has weight. Nora Beckett brings me pie one afternoon, apple, still warm. Your parents made their choices, she says, setting the tin on my desk. But they're still your parents. Don't be ashamed of them. That's theirs. I nod. Then Kelsey calls one evening. She's at a friend's house, voice small. Iris? Yes? My throat constricts. I don't understand all that occurred, but I'm sorry they put you through this. Thanks, Kels. Are you okay? I'm getting there. I drive to the cabin on a Saturday morning in late April. The dogwoods along the lake road are blooming, white and pale pink against the dark water. I unlock the front door with the same key Grandpa gave me when I was 14. In case you ever need to get in when we're not here, he said. I didn't know then that he meant permanently. The cabin smells the same, pine and old books, and that sweet, faint something I've never been able to name. I think now it might be the wood itself. Decades of sun and rain soaked into the walls. I walk through every room. The kitchen table Grandpa built, still solid, still level. Grandma's bookshelves, organized by color. The bedroom where she read to me when I was small. The porch where Grandpa and I watched the lake turn gold. In the desk drawer by the window, I find an envelope. My name on the front in Grandpa Harold's handwriting. Margaret told me it would be there. She'd been saving it for after the trust was settled. I open it carefully. It's a letter, 1 page, written in blue ink. His handwriting getting looser toward the bottom, the way it always did when he was tired. He tells me he knows his sons will try to sell the cabin. He doesn't blame them. Greg is his boy, and he loves him. But Greg never understood the difference between something that has value and something that's valuable. He says he chose me not because I'm perfect, but because I'm the one who asked whether the roof needed patching before I ever asked what the place was worth. The last line says, "Take care of it." I fold the letter, sit on the porch, and take a deep breath. The next week, Margaret calls and says, "Good news. Now that the title is not under active threat, the lis pendens may be withdrawn. The property record will list the trust as the only owner after it has been cleared. Clear, free of obstacles and clouds. Wade too?" He reached a settlement with Ridgeline and used a loan to cover the $45,000 penalty. The agreement is no longer in effect. The district attorney's office is investigating the falsified notary stamp. Depending on the outcome of the inquiry, he can be charged with a misdemeanor or perhaps a crime. What about his license? Suspended indefinitely. While there is an ongoing criminal referral, he is not eligible to seek for reinstatement. I take a time to sit with that. I'm not satisfied. I have the type of tiredness that follows a protracted sickness. I'm not ill anymore, but I'm also not feeling good. Margaret adds there's one more item. Your grandparents set aside $5,000 for your college fees in a separate educational fund specified in the trust paperwork. For 6 years, interest has been accumulated. Just over $58,000 is the current balance. My eyes hurt. $50,000. The same figure Greg gave me as my part of the transaction. Wade dangled the same number as a bribe. It was previously put aside by my grandparents, silently, without disclosing it to anyone. Are you there, Iris? Yes. My voice scarcely breaks. I'm present. Your grandparents would be pleased. Margaret, I simply fulfilled my pledge. That week, I enroll in environmental science with a forestry minor at Ridgemont Community College. The cottage is 20 minutes from the college, which is closer than my parents' home. I complete the housing applications. I enter the cabin's address for the first time under current address. It is like to returning home, since it is. I invite Greg and Denise to join me at the Birch Street coffee shop. Neutral ground, nor the cabin, nor the home, somewhere quiet and open. Together they arrive. I recognize that Greg is wearing a flannel that I haven't seen in a long time, one of Grandpa's. When Denise feels anxious, she clutches her handbag close to her side. We place an order. I hold off until the cups are placed on the table. I love you, I declare. Denise's jaw tightens, but she nods. Both of you. I need you to know that, because what I'm about to say might not sound like it. The cabin is not for sale, not now, not ever. I won't be made to feel guilty for keeping a promise I made to Grandma. A promise she trusted me to keep because she didn't think anyone else would. Greg stares at his coffee. I'm not cutting you out of my life, I say. But if we're going to have a relationship, it has to be built on respect. Not on what I can give you financially, not on guilt, not on the idea that I owe you something because you're my parents. Denise begins to speak, then begin by being truthful about what transpired. We just wanted what was best for. You made an attempt to sell something that wasn't yours. You said you would throw me out. You went through my bag. She closes her mouth. Greg still hasn't looked up. When he finally speaks, his voice is rough. I don't know how to fix this. You don't have to fix it today. I stand. I leave enough cash for all 3 coffees. I'll call you Sunday. He nods. One small nod. I walk out into the sunlight. It's the most I can hope for right now. And that's enough. Kelsey shows up at the cabin on a Sunday afternoon in May. She's carrying a pizza box and wearing the same oversized hoodie she's had since 8th grade. I brought lunch, she says. Hope you like pepperoni. Always. We sit on the porch with paper plates on our laps and the pizza box between us. The lake is still. A heron stands in the shallows near the dock, perfectly motionless, waiting for something below the surface. Kelsey eats slowly. She's not here for pizza. I didn't know about any of it, she says finally. Mom and Dad never told me. I am aware. Was I contributing to the issue? I look at her. 15, thin-shouldered, still growing into the shape of whoever she'll become. She didn't choose any of this. She didn't ask to be the favorite. She didn't know the attention they gave her was taken from somewhere else. You were a kid, Kels. She nods, removes a piece of cheese from her slice, and places it on the edge of her plate. It's really beautiful here, she says, gazing out at the water. Grandma used to say the same thing every single time she sat in that chair. Kelsey looks at Grandpa's chair, which is empty next to mine, and has the armrest smoothed by him. Can I come back sometimes? Anytime. She leans her head against my shoulder just for a moment. Then she sits up and takes another bite. We don't talk about our parents. We don't talk about trusts or lawsuits or forged documents. We talk about her school project, about the heron, about whether the dock needs new planks this summer. The cabin didn't just protect property, it made space for something new to start. Early June, 6:00 a.m. I'm on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the mist lift off Cedar Lake. The pines are sharp against a pale sky. A loon calls somewhere out on the water. 2 long notes, then silence. I didn't win against my family. There's no winning when the people who hurt you are the people who were supposed to protect you. You don't get a trophy for surviving something that should never have happened in the first place. But I kept a promise. And for the first time in my life, I'm standing somewhere that belongs to me. Not because I fought for it, but because 2 people loved me enough to plan for exactly this. They saw the storm before I did. They built the shelter before I knew I'd need one. My grandparents couldn't stop my parents from being who they are. They couldn't make Greg less desperate or Denise less afraid. They couldn't keep Wade from chasing money that wasn't his, but they could make sure I had ground to stand on, literally. I think about the letter in the drawer, about Grandpa's words, the difference between something that has value and something that's valuable. This cabin has both, but only one of them can be measured, and my family spent 2 years focused on the wrong one. I sip my coffee. The mist clears. The lake turns blue. If you're listening to this and you feel like nobody's in your corner, I want you to hear me. Sometimes the people who protect you aren't the ones standing in front of you. Sometimes they planned for you years ago, quietly, without telling anyone. And sometimes all you have to do is show up, sign the paper, and keep the promise. Peace doesn't come from revenge. It comes from standing on something solid and knowing you built your life on it. That's my story. If it made you feel something, anger, relief, hope, or even just a little less alone, then it did what I hoped it would. Now I have a question for you. If you could protect one thing in your life, a place, a person, a promise, what would it be? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. And if this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love to have you here for the next one. Check the description for more stories like this. I'll see you next time.